This reading is from Matthew chapter 6, verses 5 to 15, and you can follow it on page 970 in the New Pew Bibles. And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. This, then, is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thank you also very much indeed. Now, in our all-age services, which we have on the first Sunday of each month, we've been starting to work through the Lord's Prayer, but I missed the last one, and lots of the kids were away for the first one. So we haven't got very far in it, but we're going to crack on, and we've got to the second line, hallowed be your name. So here's a little quiz question to get us into what hallowed be your name means. Turn to your neighbour and think about this. Odd one out, very simple. So this is the 2027 Volkswagen ID Polo GTI, okay? That is the football pitch at the Emirates Stadium, the Arsenal player. This is the esports player. He basically plays computer games and gets paid for it. Tom Lejeune. And that represents the French publishing house Editions Grasset, founded in 1907. Which one of those is the odd one out? Turn to your neighbour and have a discussion, and then we'll see if we've got any answers. So the Polo GTI, Arsenal's football pitch, Tom Lejeune, and the Editions Grasset. Off you go. Yeah. All right then. What are some of your guesses? What's the odd one out? Eliza?
The French one.
Which one's the French one? The bottom, that one? The Editions Grasset. Why is that?
Because all of the others related to machinery.
All the others related to machinery and stuff. That's good, but it's not correct. Sorry. Any more for any more? Ilse, you going to have a go? The lawnmower, the car? No. Oh, no, the lawnmower. Sorry, yeah, the lawnmower. Yes, why is that? Oh, yeah, European versus British. That's very good, but it's not right. Any more for any more? It's to do with hallowed. Yes, over there. This guy? Why? The grass in common. That's very good. I should have thought of that. You're right, but for the wrong reason. Shall I tell you what it is? It is esports player Tom Lejeune, because this is really unfair. All the other three have been described as hallowed, but this guy, his username is Hallow. That was naughty, wasn't it? So here we go. There's the ID Polo GTI unveiled as the hallowed nameplate. The Polo GTI for VW is a hallowed nameplate. That's how people talk about it. And that's the first time that the ID, the electric car, has been given that nameplate. Arsenal Stadium, pitch perfect, how our hallowed turf is prepared. That's how most often you hear the word hallowed today. Here's this French billionaire who bought this publishing house. French billionaire shrugs off mass exodus, that hallowed French publisher, and you can't really see it, but in our last one, you'll see, where is it? His name up there, Tom Hallow-Lejeune. He plays Call of Duty and probably earns more money than all of us put together for it. Now, here's the point. Those four things that we saw on the screen, sorry, those three, ignore him. Those three things are most often how people today would use the word hallowed. I guess it means something like maybe sort of special, but a bit more than that. It's got history to it. So the GTI name badge, if you're into cars, that's a great and historic sort of name to have. And obviously, you know, your favorite football teams, their pitch is special. You might have seen amazing things happen there. The publishing house has produced amazing books over the years. And it would come close to the idea of sort of sacred. It's so special that you treat it with a particular honor. And that is one of the things that hallowed meant in Jesus' day. So when he says to pray to God, and the first thing you say is, hallowed be your name, it has that sense of specialness. But even more, it has a sense of most important, and if you like, ultimate. Now, to understand that thing, I need another volunteer to kind of come up and answer some questions. Ellie, you come up. Now, you might have seen this already. It's a very simple game. It's sort of like winner stays on. I want you to think of, like, tell me, but just think about it. And I'm going to give you a few options. I've asked, as it happens, I asked Ollie Huggins to pose for a few pictures, just to give us a sense. He's church warden, so he's already got a superpower. But here's the first superpower you might choose. It's time travel. Yep, so hold that. So that's what you've got. But would you rather have time travel or super speed? Choose one of them. You'd rather have time, so keep hold of that. So we're going to get rid of super speed. That's gone. So our next one, would you rather have time travel or super strength? You're going to stick with time travel, okay. Here's the next one. Would you rather have time travel or invisibility? I've lost invisibility. It's disappeared. Go for it. Invisibility. Time travel. You're sticking with time travel. So the next one is, would you rather have time travel or the ability to talk to animals? You'd rather have the ability to talk to animals. So take that one or get rid of that one. Okay, so this is winning at the moment. Next one along. Would you rather have the ability to talk to animals or the ability to shapeshift? Oh, there's invisibility. It popped up. The ability to shapeshift. Shape-shifting. Okay, give you that one. Take away that one. So that one's winning right now. Next one along. Would you rather have shape-shifting or teleportation? Shape-shifting, you're going to stick with it. So our last one. Would you rather have shape-shifting or the ability to fly? You're going to stick with shape-shifting. So we all know now that Ellie Maitland's favourite thing, hold it up nice and high, is shape-shifting. Give her a round of applause. And you can take that with you. I think I'd have flying. Because look how happy Ollie looks flying through the sky. But it's your choice. So you see the point there, that there's one superpower that in the end won out over all the rest. Every time that it came up against something, no, Ellie stuck with shape-shifting. She changed to it, and then she stuck with it no matter what. That, if you like, gives us a little insight in what it means to say, hallowed be your name. Good options that you have, things that you can treat as most important. There are loads of good things you could treat as most important. In praying, hallowed be your name, it's like you're saying God's name is the thing that wins every time. The thing, actually, in the way Jesus tells his story about prayer here, that will get you praying. Did you notice about the hypocrites, as he calls them, in verse 5? He says, when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray, standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. It's really interesting. It looks like the only reason that the hypocrites here, whoever they are, actually pray is because what matters most to them is being seen by others and being recognized, having that kind of acclaim and honor. But it seems to me that's how it works. Whatever is the thing that you care about most is the thing that you're going to pray about. If you're going to lose that thing, you'll pray about it. If you want that thing, you'll pray about it. It'll sort of lead you to prayer. And what Jesus says in the Lord's Prayer is, don't be like them. Make God your winner every time. If you have the competition, God's name be hallowed. That's what hallowed means. It means that sort of idea of sacred and special, but it means most important, number one thing in your life. And that is what Jesus is saying here. That's what he's saying for how we live all our lives and what should shape our prayers above all else. The question is why? Why would Jesus say that? We're going to come back and think about that after our next song. It's a song we learned a few months ago now, and it reminds us that God is bigger than everything that we can possibly think. He's bigger than big. He doesn't have a birthday, as the first line of the song goes. So let's stand. Please do take your seats. So when we pray, when we're called to pray, hallowed be your name, it's like we're saying to God, God, I want you to be in my life sacred and ultimate, that number one thing. And the question is, why? Why would Jesus tell us to put God in that top position and to pray that God would be in that top position? Well, that song gives us a few answers, doesn't it? That God is so far beyond all human ability to understand. That doesn't make him unworthy of worship, but even more worthy. We can't get our heads around it, but what we can understand about him makes us see that he is glorious and amazing. But I think there's something very particular that the rest of, if you like, the rest of the shape of the Lord's Prayer also points us to. And it's the reason that this is the very first thing that Jesus calls us to pray for. The first line of the Lord's Prayer, Our Father in Heaven, is like the address. It's like saying, Dear God. And this is the very first actual line in the prayer. And the rest sort of follows after it. There's a reason for that order. It's not that God doesn't care about all the other things in your life. He's going to call you to pray about them in a few moments' time. But here's the point. You'll only be able to pray rightly and then understand rightly and make sense of rightly and use and enjoy rightly all the other things that God has given you if the first thing you pray is hallowed be your name. I'm a big C.S. Lewis fan, and I was thinking the other day, I think this is my favorite of all the C.S. Lewis quotes that I like. It's in an essay he wrote called First and Second Things. He says this there, the person who makes a dog the center of their life loses in the end not only their human usefulness and dignity, but even the proper pleasure of dog keeping. The man who makes alcohol his chief good loses not only his job, but his palate and all power of enjoying the earlier pleasurable levels of intoxication. It is a glorious thing to feel for a moment or two that the whole meaning of the universe is summed up in one woman, glorious so long as other duties and pleasure keep tearing you away from her. But clear the decks and so arrange your life that you will have nothing to do but contemplate her and what happens. The reason the essay is called First and Second Things is because he's saying, if you put a second thing, a thing that shouldn't be number one, into first place, really, really bad things happen. If you took your pet dog and said, you're in charge of our house now, and we are going to do everything we can to get down to your level and understand what you're trying to communicate as best we can, and the whole house will be sort of ordered around you. Just think for a second how terrible that would be. How terrible that would actually be for your dog. They'd look at you as if, what are you doing? That's not the way it's supposed to be. They'll know. It'd be terrible for you. You become sort of, well, he says, you lose your human dignity. I think I've told you already, I knew someone who at the end of his meal, when he had sort of food around his mouth, used to get down and let his dog lick around his face. I would say, apologies to dog owners if you do that, you've lost your dignity at that point. But if you sort of, even a little bit, put the dog in that place in your home, we know something's gone wrong somewhere. And the same is true with the other things that he listed. We can think of stories, we might know people who have put the wrong thing in first place, and the consequences in their life have been terrible. The reason that Jesus says, pray this prayer first, hallowed be your name, is because God is the only thing that can go in that first place. So, You remember our superheroes, Winner Stays On. Imagine if I took every last thing I could in my life and started playing the same game. So here's one thing, rugby. Now, I like rugby, but let's say it goes up against cheese. It's a tricky one, but for me, I do like cheese, but I prefer rugby, so rugby stays on. Okay, so the next one, I love a Boston Tea Party sweet corn hash. And at this point, if you've never had Boston Tea Party sweet corn hash, it's the best food you can get. So I have to say, terrible as this sounds, that actually Boston Tea Party sweet corn hash beats rugby. But then, this is just obviously random, Eliza. Now, this is obvious, isn't it? So I choose Eliza. But then, look at the next one. Zach, my eldest son. And it gets worse, because the next one along might be Benji. And the next one along might be Jenny. And the next one along might be my mother-in-law. And how do you choose? How do you choose? When it comes to our lives, we have this sort of winner stays on thing happening all the time. We have to work out who's going to take number one spot. The reason that Jesus says make God your number one is because when it comes to him, if you like, he helps you put all the other things in the right order. You don't have to choose between your wife and mother-in-law or your kids. You don't have to choose between rugby and cheese. He'll teach you to put them all in their proper place. That is part of the point of praying, hallowed be your name. There are all kinds of other things that you can put in that top spot. And people do that all the time. They might put their family. They might put their country. They might put their work. And it's not like when you do that, everything goes terribly wrong. But in the end, whatever's in that top spot will win out. And the reason Jesus says, put hallowed be your name there, as in put God there, is because anything else in the end will, if you like, sort of ruin everything else on the list. Hallowed be your name is a way of saying, look, with that as the first thing and everything else as the second thing, that is the way that life will go best for you, ultimately. Growing up, a lot of what growing up is learning what the second things are and learning that if they stay second to God, then that will be his good purpose for you, but seeing where that's really hard because things come along that want to take the top spot. And growing as a Christian is seeing that the only first thing that can keep all the other things in their right place is God. And putting him there doesn't mean, if you like, ruining all the rest, but all the rest belonging exactly where they should be. Last thing to think about for just a few moments. Okay, how do you do it? How do you keep God as your first thing? Now, you might be thinking of all the other second things in your life, that sort of challenge. How do you keep God up there? Well, I think the answer is actually in the very first line, the thing that we looked at a couple of months ago, those of us who were here. Our Father in heaven. What that's saying about God is the reason why he is the best and only and most wonderful first thing. Because it's saying that he is both close and intimate, like the very best father you could dream of, but also high and mighty and supreme. Now, we don't think, do we, that those two things often belong together. You think of someone who is intimate and kind and loves you, and you think of someone who is powerful and mighty and supreme, and we can't work out how they go together. But they do with God. And that's the very best thing. Now, just to understand this, I have concocted, this is the most basic of illustrations I think I've ever done. But here I'm going to show you a very simple pendulum. Now, you know how pendulums work. You've been to science class. But a pendulum is very simple. If you push it up this side and send it, it goes all the way that side. If you only send it a little bit, it only goes a little bit. If you send it all the way up here, it goes all the way down there. When we think about God, we often think that if we're going to sort of make him sort of big and holy and powerful up here, then he's not going to be, loving and kind and father-like over here. But the way that Jesus teaches us to pray basically says, the more that you think of God as Father, actually, the more you'll be helped to see that he is mighty and powerful. And the more you understand him as mighty and powerful, the more you'll understand him as Father. If you like, our Father in heaven is like the pendulum here, that you push it up further here, it goes further back that way. Let me try and show you what I mean. In our other services in the month, we've been working through the book of Isaiah. If you go to part of the book, here to the next slide, please, Zach. If you look at the book of Isaiah, in chapter 46, you see some extraordinary words about Isaiah, about God. I am God, there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times what is still to come. I say my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. Now that sounds like, raising God's sovereignty and might and power all the way up here. How can you possibly have a God that mighty and also have him as a father? But here's the point. The God that Jesus reveals is a God that mighty. But all of his might and power, his sovereignty, his gloriousness, he puts towards caring for his children. So one old piece of Christian liturgy called the Heidelberg Catechism puts it this way. What do you understand by the providence of God? God's providence is his almighty and ever-present power, whereby, as with his hand, he still upholds heaven and earth and all creatures, and so governs them that leaf and blade, rain and drought, fruitful and barren years, food and drink, health and sickness, riches and poverty, indeed all things come to us not by chance, but by his fatherly hand. When you know that God is mighty and powerful, you also see him as an extraordinary kind father, because all of that might and power he has put towards caring for you. And so the next question, the Heidelberg Catechism, what does it benefit us to know that God has created all things and still upholds them by his providence? We can be patient in adversity, thankful in prosperity, and with a view to the future, we can have a firm confidence in our faithful God and Father, that no creature shall separate us from his love, for all creatures are so completely in his hand that without his will they cannot so much as move. God's might and power doesn't make him less of a father, but even more of a father, because he's so understanding of every situation in your life and so concerned for it. Or think about what the cross shows us. The cross shows us a God who is holy. If you raise up the holiness of God, that he so detests sin that he can't be in the sight of it, how can that lead you to a God who is kind? But think about what the cross shows. God is so holy that he cannot be in the presence of sin, and yet he is so loving that he sent Jesus to die for it. Think about it. If you had a God who was, not that bothered by sin, he's sort of a little bit holy maybe, sort of to there, then the cross actually wouldn't show you that much about his love. It might show you that, he's got a little bit of concern for it. But only when you get a God who is super holy do you get a cross that shows a super loving God at the same time. That's how you can pray, hallowed be your name, knowing that you're first of all saying, our Father in heaven. We're going to sing a song now that invites us to respond by saying basically the same thing. It talks about God's glory and our good. God's glory, in other words, his hallowedness. God's glory, putting him in number one, is the very best thing for us. So as you're able, let's stand and sing together.